All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you all for coming today. I first. Huh? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I am. There we go. Welcome, everybody, to Inside the Minds of Cleverman, our panel discussion for this evening, which goes in line with our superheroes workshops and week that we're actually having here, celebrations, as top of the opening of the Cleverman exhibition that we've also got here at ACMI. So we're really excited to have both events happening here, and we're excited to have all the people come and see and to learn and to really, delve into it. So, just really wanted to acknowledge that. First thing I'd like to start by is paying my respects. So I'd like to pay acknowledgements to traditional owners, the Woiwurrung and the Bunurong. It is land. Sorry. It is one of those stories that are constantly ingrained here within where Fed Square sits, and it's very significant of where the river sits along here. And so it's really great that ACMI can host what they host and, be acknowledging and be respectful of the traditional owners and the Kulin Nation. I'd like to also acknowledge our guests, being that they've travelled so far and near as well, and acknowledge yourselves as well, being traditional owners from your own country and guests on country today. So I'd like to acknowledge yourselves, and also thank you all for being here tonight and for speaking on ACMI's behalf too and representing. So it's really good, and we're all excited to really get into the guts of what Cleverman is. So today, guys, my name's Kat Clark. I'm the curator for the Cleverman exhibition, one of the curators, and I'm also a Wajibalik woman from the Wimmera. So if you've been up to the Grampians around that area, then that's all country and home for me. Tonight our hosts are Kimberly Lovegrove and Keena Muir, and our guest today is Uncle Gary Williams from Murrubai Language Corporation, Northern New South Wales. We've also got Tamala Shelton, one of the key casts of Cleverman series, and then we've got our one and only Cleverman creator over there, Ryan Griffin, sitting down. So, yes. We're very lucky to have all three here tonight. So I won't leave you much longer, and I'll let our hosts really kick it off and get started. So go for it, guys.
Okay. Might do a quick introduction myself. But I do want to acknowledge the land that we're on, the land of the Kulin Nations, their elders past, present and emerging. The thing that really strikes me about Cleverman and shows like Cleverman is it's a new vessel for us to continue our storytelling, which is why I'm such a fan. My name's Keena Muir. I come from the Yorta Yorta and Ngarrindjeri people, so along the Murray River. I will be the 2019 Indigenous Comic-Con organiser, bringing that to Australia.
Big deal, everyone, big deal.
Which is, it's not an easy task to do. For those who don't know it, Indigenous Comic-Con is basically like any other Comic-Con. It's just focusing more on Indigenous creatives from around the world. So that will be November next year at the Footscray Arts Centre. So make sure you're there. I'm also a cosplayer. Go by the name CJ and the Cosplay. I am one of 3 cosplayers Indigenous cosplayers in Australia. Thanks a lot. But I mean, through that I've done gigs like this, so which is amazing. And Kimmy, I'll leave you to introduce yourself.
So my name's Kimmy Lovegrove from the Ngarrindjeri Nation, as is Keenan, as you mentioned. So we are cousins related, hence why I was clapping to everything I was saying. What else? I actually am a stand-up comedian, so I have a couple of videos on YouTube from the Melbourne International Comedy Festival through Deadly Funny. So that's a competition to find the funniest blackfella in Australia, and I've been very privileged to reach the nationals for the last 2 years. So everything's going up Kimmy, which is good. I'm really enjoying it. One of the reasons why I accepted to co-host with Keenan was, really, really big fan on blackfellas telling their story in a different way. And we've never seen blackfellas tell their story through a show like Cleverman. So I actually went to Supernova a couple of years ago, and I met some of the cast and Ryan, and I asked them, how do you stay connected to your culture and to your community, but also wanting to go out into the mainstream industry and do your thing there. So I think it's very important that we have such a great panel to ask questions like that and actually find out how do we stay true to ourselves without selling out to the man. But yeah.
Also, before we continue, just want to give a shout out to Kat for that amazing exhibition. Trust me, if you're obsessed with Cleverman like I am, that's definitely an exhibition you'll want to see. So shout out to you, Kat. So let's get into it. So first question, not a tough one, or general one. We'll probably just go down the line on popcorn.
We have no popcorn here, so
no popcorn.
don't worry, we won't be throwing it at you saying, answer that question right now. So it's fine.
So what is your go-to movie and why? So if you were stranded on an island, what is the one movie you would take with you?
Can I answer this one?
Robinson Crusoe. If I'm on an island. No, look, I don't know. I think I jump up and down with different types of cinema. I think for me, when I'm actually working on something, I try and avoid the genre altogether. As for a film that I can keep watching, it's a kind of a corny one, I guess. Is I can always, doesn't matter if it's on television or I'll sit through the ads, I can always watch Good Will Hunting. Doesn't matter. There's two scenes in that just bring me to tears all the time, and I will sit there and wait for those moments.
Good movie. Amala.
There's a film called The Fall, which came out in 2006, and I found it through loving cinematography. And I think I even Googled top 10 best cinematography films and tried to make my way through it and skip Samsara and moved straight to The Fall. So I highly recommend. They didn't promote it much, so you have to kind of search for it. But yeah, I just love the concepts in it, and I time and time again watch that. Yeah. The Fall, 2006, not the series.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll check that out. Uncle Gary.
I don't really know, actually. Come to think of it, I've been going through my mind, but we haven't been watching that many movies, but maybe on a fallback, and maybe because old guys, Shawshank Redemption.
Good movie. That's in my top 5 too. Kimmy?
I would have to say the Maze Runner series, just because my favourite actor's in it. We've had discussions about this, and you keep forgetting his name, and I refuse to repeat it because. So if anyone knows, it's Dylan O'Brien, who's featured in Teen Wolf. Just for anyone who is interested, Supernova next year is bringing Tyler Posey from. I just said it. Teen Wolf. He's also was the little kid who played Jennifer Lopez's son in Maid in Manhattan. So if you're big fans, buy some tickets to Supernova. I will be there. He will be there. Everyone go there. Let's, have the biggest amount of blackfellas there and just say, we're here.
So, Ryan, going back to the very beginning, this is probably the most important question. You were playing Ninja Turtles with your son. Which Ninja Turtle were you?
I was actually Shredder. I was the bad guy.
Okay.
Evil!
Yeah. So yeah, look, he was always dressed up as Raphael, and he was using plastic egg lifters and as his size.
Solid.
And you know, it's interesting. I'm tempted to one day, like we've got actual video footage of that moment, and one day I'll be less embarrassed to put it out there. But yeah, no, it's he really connected to superheroes and really loved playing out that sort of stuff. So it was later that day. I was like, okay, I need to make something for him that he can get excited for just as much as he does any of the other superhero stuff. But also, the big thing for me is, being light-skinned Aboriginal, and his mother is also light-skinned Aboriginal. You know, for me growing up, I had to defend my Aboriginality, and it wasn't until they saw my dad where they go, oh, okay, it's like, I accept accept you now. That's not going to be so easy for my son. So I was like, if I can give him things that will help him, empower him, and for him to not worry what anyone else says, as long as he knows who he is. That's where it all started from.
Cool. And with that, how long would you say that process was from getting what was in your mind to something on paper?
I think we took almost 4 to 5 years. Originally, we had started. Originally, the first concept was a kids series called Dreamtime Detectives, where Cohen was solving puzzles of why the echidna has spikes, and it was we were trying to look at certain dreaming stories that could fit in that space, and a lot of our stories are very brutal, and I didn't want to water it down for kids television. We all know the Dreamtime stories that have been appropriated for kids books, but they've been so chopped up to make it palatable for a Western audience. I didn't want to do that. And so we really found it difficult to do until the ABC started to go, do you want to age it up? And so, we started at an 8:30 in the morning time slot, and then we did kids afternoon television until we got to 9:30 where we could have sex and violence and all that sort of stuff.
Good, because I don't get up at 8.
No.
So I understand there was a bit of research involved before, along the process. Did that involve? What was involved with that?
Yeah, look, there's first of all, it was reaching out to elders from my country, and also John Bell's country, one of the writers. So that was Gamilaroi, Gumroy, and Bangjalong, and that was just accessing stories that we knew. But then there was more stories that we wanted to find. At one stage we kind of had the Doctor Who model where we had different creatures almost weekly, and it got to a point where we were like, let's just strip it back and make sure that we can make a solid story across the 6 episodes. So we only picked the 2 creatures, one being the Namorador and the Harries, and we just stuck to that for the first season. And then obviously dealing with the cultural sensitivities around a Cleverman. So the elders were involved in that early stages. You know, and there were some communities that didn't want to be involved in it, and we spoke to them and we said, look, you know, that's fine, and we removed any elements that would reflect that country. So we, you know, thankfully, again, both myself and John Bell's countries were very forthcoming and really understood what we wanted to do.
Cool. Well, did you, so you mentioned there was a bit of pullback, I guess, from some communities. So with that, were they a bit more concerned that it was too specific to something? So you tried to generalise?
Yeah, look, we certainly generalise the Harries. You know, that is a universal story amongst many different nations throughout Australia. There are, you know, you go north Queensland, and they're small fellas and they're mischievous, and then for mine they were tall and aggressive. So there, you know, there were so many that, you know, I felt that as long as we stayed true to the countries that gave us permission, there were still elements in our show that other blackfellas could find a way in, whether or not we were talking about their countries or not. You know, it is, especially with the Cleverman, it is, you know, that is, for my area, it's men's business, and, you know, we had to go around accordingly for that information. And we really sat down and spoke to the elders and sort of said, look, we're not actually showing any cultural practice. We're not showing, you know, initiation. We're not showing any of that sort of stuff. We, in a way, we're creating our own Cleverman for our show. It's a representation. It's not a depiction. And so we really sat down, and, you know, a lot of them, the funny thing was, a lot of them weren't quite sure until I said to them, okay, imagine if we had a black Harry Potter. And then they were like, oh, you know, they got all excited about Harry Potter, and it's like, okay. So, you know, it started that conversation. You know, there were times, there are moments in this process where, you know, I was taken to, you know, certain places. You know, I had to sit in there's this one area where I had to sit in water that had crocs in it, and was told the story with one of the elders, and because it was a certain area that you know, to hand the stories over. There were moments where I was playing cards with we were playing euchre with some of the older aunties. Like, it was just a process that it's not, you know, I never wanted to go in and say, can I have your stories, and then leave. It was always a process of making sure that you know, there are ways that the community could benefit as well. You know, like reaching out to Uncle Gary for the language. I've always said that, you know, there are people throughout the world who can speak Klingon and Elvish fluently.
Who?
And
Who?
oh, well, and we have people who just don't even know any of our language. And so if we could, you know, involve the Gumbayngi language, if anyone wanted to further their research and knowledge of that, there's only one place they could go, and that's to the community. So it was always about being respectful, but also finding ways that the community can benefit from the project as well.
Cool. So just on that, Uncle Gary, did you, so with the language that was used, was most of it, I guess I'm trying to get a sense of how strong the language was, because where I'm from, Yorta, I mean, we're only now discovering how strong the language was through these texts from our elders. So how much of that language did you have to draw from?
Yeah. Before I start, I'd like to acknowledge the land that we are on, and pay homage to the people, past and present and future. well, thank you, Ryan, for thinking of us. I know you wanted to feature, you know, you had your Bunjalung connection, and Bunjalung is my father's side, and that you had a young fellow, my cousin's son, Margit Heath, working, and he had done some language work with us before, so he was the in-between person. He knew a bit of not only language, but he knew the sounds of the language and how it's put together. And so first up, we got this request, and we had a good look. We asked for a bit more clarity, and so we got some of the scripts and everything like that. We'll go back to first. Our language centre, where we are, has been in our place at Nambucca Heads. Been operating there for approximately 20 years, so from 96 to present day. But it had been going 10 years before that. And in the next language, actually, there's a long story there about people being moved because they wanted to create a bigger super reserve, as they say, and they moved some of our people over there. Luckily, our mob said no, we're not going, and for some strange reason they didn't force us to go. But as the old fellow said, they saw them going past on the back of cattle trucks, and but these were the people, and with our dictionary, I always say, look at the inscription at the front there before you go into the language, because these were the people who were old age pensioners by that stage in the mid-80s, and found this Christian brother who wanted to help them. He was a teacher, so he could write down things, and he had to become a linguist to do the stories justice, because they were language speakers. And from there, they taught younger people, who then came over to bring the language home to Nambucca. And the first class was in 97, and I was in that first class. So, and I stayed with the language centre all that time, and they won't let me retire. So, but yes, so we had we were going before lots of people, especially on the eastern seaboard, were programs to get people in. So we had our own linguists. We had, and there was money around in those days. Now there's lots of programs and not so much money. So everybody's feeling it. But yeah, so it was. We then not only started to look at language and how we can revitalise it, but we were also then getting lots of requests for signage and all those kind of other things, and the use of English in translation into what they call English concept words, as our brother Steve always says, that comes with religion, concept words, faith, hope, and charity, that type of. So that, and actually, I got request the other week for wholeness, and from an Aboriginal guy in Queensland. Yeah, but anyway, but so that we were kind of because you when you learn a second language, which is the second language is my mother's language, which is Gumbenga, you also need to learn the nuts and bolts of your people who've learnt French and Italian and everything like that. Know that you need to start learning about verbs and all that kind of thing. Well, you have to do the same thing, and so not only did we learn English a bit more nuts and bolts, but younger people when they so that they did very well with in their English at school. And but that's beside the point. But what it was is that when this request came through for this project, it wasn't something bowled out of the blue. It was just a bit extra from of what we were doing, and believe me, it was still hard work. And no matter how good Cleverman is, my thoughts is tiredness. You know, like, can you do this? We need it for tomorrow. Reworked it. So could you have it for tomorrow? And we did, but we knew how to operate in that kind of fashion, and we also talked around, and you know, I've got relations and everything my age, and friends my age, where they're a bit worried about this concept of this project and everything like that. And to this day, some of them haven't seen the series, and for political and cultural reason. But they will take my word that it was, you know, it doesn't infringe anything. I have a grandniece whose father comes from Mornington Island, and she didn't know whether to watch it or not, but she watched the first one, and she loved it. So I'll take her word for it. So as I said to Marla earlier on, I'll just say to the two old codgers, you know, to loosen up a bit. Listen to your grandnieces. But yes, but on the thing of language, we our dictionary and another ad. I've just lost it then. But
we'll come back to your question once it comes back.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we working through Margaret Heath, who I can't say enough about, and so that he used to run it through John. So we had good back and forwards, either direct or through Margaret, and so that and I only went down to the set for one day, and you weren't there that day. Yes, and I had to do a young Briggs fellow through Skype at the same time as So it was all fun, but it's no, you know, my deal is, and we said it to the people who were putting the show on, that you've got to think of the actors, and that some of them are very long, very involved. You've got to realise that this language, that it was full, and everything that was said was a full and proper language. It may not have been, well, it wasn't the way language would have been spoken then. It was technical. We had enough words in our dictionary, that's what I was going to say, in our dictionary to be able to cover everything that had come up. We found new words for that we had come across. I'll tell you, one word was, you had to talk about place of safety, and that came up quite a bit. And we've got this word, dalbilwir. It's a place of safety because if people are having a fight, so war in the old days, more you had somebody going in between, so people are, it was done by the book, and if people first off threw boomerangs and they threw spears and everything like that, once they threw them, if they fell short, women would go out and pick them up. And it was seen, a white fella was talking about one war up Nikov's Harbour and talked about the women running out and getting the spears. So even if it was going, the people still going, you never threw anything that would go into that area. That was the safe area. And so we use that as a when people say safety or safe areas or whatever, that was, so you extended the meaning. So it was fun. It was fun. It was such hard work. We didn't do as much Bunjalung, but we were more at ease with Gumbanger. So the old man had the Bunjalung, he had a few lines there. And I forget his name now.
Uncle Jack.
Yes. No, his character.
Jimmy.
Yeah.
Uncle Jim. Yes. So that was good. And yeah, but I won't go on too long, but yes. And another little ad, by the way, Ryan, if you want to find out how the porcupine got his quills, it's in one of these stories.
Amazing.
Okay.
I'd just like to add is on the fact that the uncles and aunties were finding words, and I apologise that I can't remember it, but we sent a script that had the word hyperdrive in it. And they put together a word for hyperdrive in language. And it's down in the exhibition, so if you look carefully you'll be able to see it. But that was to the level that they were, so forthcoming and wanting to help out on the project that, you have something like that now in language, which is phenomenal.
A word for everything. Every word. There's another word for it. So I'm going to ask a couple questions because it's my turn. So what drew you to being part of Cleverman? So for me, I was never part of Cleverman, but I loved it. And I had no idea that it was coming out until a friend of mine was like, you have to watch this, the main character is hot as. I'm like, okay, what's it about? Because, no matter who you cast in any type of show, there's not a good storyline. You're not going to want to watch it, and then the show gets cancelled. So what drew you guys to being a part of Cleverman?
So it came as an audition, as they all do. I didn't know much about it when I went for it. And so then I just went for the part, and then I got a call back, and it kind of just went from there. And then I started to understand more. And I think I learnt most just being on set. I feel like we were, there was so much content being thrown into this that we were all kind of working it out as it happened. So kind of just went through it in the normal way. but yeah. And once I found out about it, it was, a project I had to be a part of. Like, that's a story that needs to be told, and I felt so honoured to be a part of that. And I felt so lucky to have gotten there and then discovered more about it. So, yeah.
Obviously, you created Cleverman, so it's just like, yeah.
Look, it was... like I said earlier, I never thought that we got to where it is today. It was purely just about something for my son, and to see it keep on growing is, exciting. To, comic books, to exhibitions. As I said last night, it got referenced on The Simpsons last week. And so...
Wait, what? Can you, act it out for us?
No, they were talking about just a whole heap of shows. And there was a billboard, and there was a couple of Australian shows on there, and Cleverman was up on the billboard with them.
Hey, we famous. Yeah.
Once you're Simpsons famous.
The money would just come piling in. I'm like, oh, yeah.
I wish it worked like that.
So, Tamala, with developing your character from script to screen, once you read it, did you sort of generate something in your head what this character would look like, or how much freedom was there for you as an actor to develop this character?
The scripts were ever changing, but the scripts that I got, gave a really clear picture of who she was, and I felt that there was so much writing on the scripts. Like, we were trying to tell so much, and so I felt such a responsibility to tell it in the best way that I could and to honour it, because there was so much jam packed into that and that needed to be told. So I felt that, but within that is freedom. So I remember I felt her the most. I think it was one of my first days filming when I did the scene when Alinta finds out that Uncle Jimmy's dead. And she's really distraught about it. And that's when I kind of got her and felt her, and it all kind of went from there. But yeah, so always freedom. And I mean, you're always working in close proximity with, honouring the writers and then honouring the director and their vision, which is awesome to work with both Uncle Wayne and Auntie. So, So yeah, I think the biggest thing coming into this project was just honouring the script and the story being told. And I've never quite worked on a project like that, feeling like we were all feeling that writing this. Like, this was, incredible. Really incredible.
And just on that, how does the set of Cleverman, how does that compare to, is Nowhere Boys?
Yeah.
Another set like that.
Yeah. Oh, Cleverman was epic. And that was the most epic thing, and still one of the most epic things I've ever worked on. Like, we were going for it. That was, we killed it. And working with Weta was amazing. Like, all the cast and crew, that was an insane project to work on. And doesn't compare ever.
Yeah.
That was a really special project to work on. That'll never be recreated ever again. Oh, we hope so.
Yeah.
But I'd love that, please. But yeah.
We were a family on set. Like, there was a lot of. Actually, I remember this, again, putting both these two through hell from changing the story constantly.
Bloody hell.
I remember this one day we were on set. It was just a lunch break, and Rob came up, and he was sitting with you, and there must have been a discussion about the story, and Rob walks over to me and is like, "My daughter is safe for the next 2 episodes, right?" Like, he was he was so passionate about, protecting, Tamala's character, and you know, and because, you know, the stories were changing, no one knew what was, you know, where they were going, because, you know, finding, especially in the first season, finding a way to end the story was so difficult. Like even to the point that in the edits that, you know, that came out, there was still, you know, 10 minutes of story that we had shot that you know, didn't make the, you know, the cut. So it was always difficult, but the fact that it had that energy and people knew that we were making something special. We had, you know, elders traveling hours just to be extras. You know, it's interesting. Being on set, you have this vibe where you have the crew eats first, and the cast eats first, and then the extras wait until it's their turn to. But, you know, we had elders there, and so we're like, I'm like, they're sitting back. I'm like, just come and join, like push in, you know, like it was just had this vibe about, you know, we were making something special.
Cool. And with that, who was the biggest prankster on set? Would you say?
Prankster.
Hunter, Brian Core.
Let's
yeah.
say Hunter though.
Yeah, those two together too.
Look, I think there was, you know, everyone. It was just fun time. Like there were big days, and you know, you had these moments where you could lighten things up. You know, or whenever Briggs was on set, you know, it was noisier and things like that. You know, in the second season, you know, we had Lisa Flanagan on set, and right away they were, you know, during takes they were singing and stuff like that. So it was just fun, because we all wanted to make something. It wasn't just a job.
Well, I mean, can I request your next project is in Melbourne? So I can be a part of it?
Well, you know, we actually had a couple of extras. We had an extra drive up from Melbourne. We had some, you know, just to be a Harry. We had an uncle who drove 4 hours to come down and then put, you know, hours through makeup to stand in the background. You know, it was. There's a lot of just moments like that where you just knew that this is exciting to be a part of. Like I think one of the moments that really blew me away was it was the first time that we had a lot of Harrys on set, and it got to a point where it was like there was a massive production line of just like, you know, people going into a room and then coming out fully hairy. And, but we were shooting some of the prison scenes in the first season, and we had I had come from the production office and they were all shooting, and I had just walked past a couple of uncles. I said hi to them, and then when I came back, they were all dressed in full hairy outfits, and they're all telling their hairy stories from their country, and it was just like, you know, I just stopped and I asked if I can sit with them for a bit. Like, it was just amazing that they all had different, you know, they all had these stories, but they're full dressed up in hairy outfits. It was just amazing to see, and it was those sort of moments where it just changed. You know, like Uncle Gary said, you know, the idea of a production is so tiresome. Like, you're non-stop doing something, and it can just take its toll on you. But then you have those little moments where you're like, okay, this is worth it.
Yeah. It would have been so powerful, just being on set and having those elders tell their stories. I would have loved it. I loved watching it.
You're like a fanboy right now. Like,
you can't tell I'm like freaking out on the inside.
if you YouTube any fanboy, fangirl moments, you'll just see them just jumping on cars of said celebrities or actors, just scream their head off. I introduce you to Keenan fanboy.
I would not jump on the car.
Don't lie, you would. You would, though. You definitely would. So one thing that I found really interesting about Cleverman was about the hairies. So my question is the hair real or is it like fake? Did you get it from a cat or
The
a
hair is
dog?
actually real hair. It is real hair. It's some of it's human hair, some of it is yak hair. You know, it was shipped from all around the world.
Is it clean?
I wasn't wearing it, so it didn't worry me.
Let's hope so.
No, look, yeah, it was all you know, completely washed. And then what is insane is that we had a team in Weta of you know, I think there was 4 or 5 women who sat there, and they would take one strand and they would weave it into, because what it is it's a stocking, and then the hair is woven through the stocking, and so you can slide it on a lot easier. So someone like Charlie has bigger, you know, costumes like that, but for some of the extras, it's almost like a slide in, and you can go on set. But yeah, there was people who would sit in a room all day putting one strand of hair in at a time to get the costumes to where they're at.
A lot of effort. I don't think I could do that. I'd just be swearing like, I did a bloody degree in communication, man. Why am I doing this? No, I couldn't do that. But another question. So at the moment, I'm, you know, getting into the whole acting thing, on top of doing the comedy thing, and for me, it's difficult to like just, you know, have a straight face when trying to like say a very serious line. So my question is, for any black fellas out there, what advice can you give to black fellas that have an interest in being a writer, or producer, or an actor, and to get into the mainstream game?
Do you want to start on that one?
Getting an agent is really like pivotal because they'll take care of you and they'll put you up for things.
Do you have any in mind, just for like everyone else?
Yeah. Well, what you want to work on as well. Like, I stumbled upon my agent because I didn't originally know that I wanted to do acting, and then I kind of just fell into it, and then I was like, oh, I need an agent to do this, and then she came along, which was amazing. I'm with Catherine Polton Management. But there's a heap out there, and like some are best for like, you know, if you want to do particular projects, they'll kind of support you in that way. But also this is a really good time to be an Aboriginal person because people are picking up, or to be anyone of colour, because I'm seeing so many more scripts come through now that are specifying that they want people of colour in the script, which I never saw before. And it was always this game for me as well, not being black enough, not being white enough. And now I'm seeing that people want as much diversity. Yeah. So the game's really changing. So this is an awesome time to be anything you want to be. But agent's really cool. And just keep trying and just keep playing and being a part of as much as you can. Like, keep busy. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I think if you wanted to write or produce or even direct, I think you just got to go out and do it, and put yourself in that space. You know, making any form of story right now is as easy as it's ever been. But saying that, it makes it more difficult to be seen because everyone's making content. So the key is to make something unique, but also universal at the same time. And that is so difficult. Like I guess, you know, when people talk to me about, you know, what was unique about Cleverman, I said, well, Aboriginality is, you know, it's the oldest living culture on the world, but no one knows about us. So that's what made it unique. And what made it universal is, unfortunately, oppression is universal. And so, you know, we have people that are connecting to a story about being treated as the other all around the world. And I think that's the key, is to find something that represents you, but can also find an in for your audience. And until you keep writing or you keep, you know, making content, you'll know what you're good at and how it works for you.
Well, that would trying to write more. So I do want to get into the directing game soon. So that's good advice.
Yeah, it's simply like there are movies that have been to Sundance that have been shot on iPhones, so it's not like it's not achievable. You know, there are so many different ways, and a good story is a good story, as long as it engages you, an audience. You know, I remember, even just, less than 10 years ago, content on YouTube was like horrible to even watch, but people were still getting engaged in it, and to see the level of what YouTube is at today, is because people stuck to it, and I think it's the same. It's the same in writing stories. It's like, even if I don't, what I tend to do with my writing is I will write a short 10-minute story, and it may never be made or whatever, but when I get writer's block or whatever, I will go through the stuff that I've written, and I'm like, oh, actually, they're just talking about milkshakes, but that may help in this scene, and there's stuff that's already there, and 10 minutes is 10 pages, and there's 60 pages in an episode, so there's always opportunity to fall back on stuff that you wrote 10 years ago.
That's interesting. So I've heard you're getting a bit more into the graphic novel scene of things. How does that, I guess, incorporating that style of storytelling impact on your writing style, I guess?
Look, I think the one thing that's really big in the States at the moment is IP, previous IP. People are quite nervous in starting new content, so pitching a new concept to someone and getting them involved is can be really hard. Where doing a graphic novel, you have a lot more freedom, a lot less people to help guide your story. They are completely different crafts. It is something that I had to get used to. There's a level of what they call on a television script is big print, which is you write the action, and the location, and then you have the dialogue. I felt that when I was writing for graphic novels, it's a lot of it was just pure big print, and sort of making sure that you could. I like my dialogue. I like to write big conversations, and it's about trying to shorten that, but also be articulate, and so that was a whole new journey, and one that I really enjoy, and I hope to keep doing that. I always have had, as soon as I worked in this industry, I've always had things that I've wanted to do, and on my wish list is to one day write a Ninja Turtle series for a graphic novel, and I've always I've got pages written just for fun. Like, I enjoy doing fanfic just as much as anyone else. And again, that's just to help hone my craft. But it's all, if that opportunity ever comes up, then I have a pool of different turtle stories that I've got, at the ready.
If there's any Ninja Turtle people on Facebook watching, please contact.
So my question is for Tamara. So was it hard learning the language in the show? Because I know for me, when I'm So when I'm learning language from back home, it like, you know, basically it's new to you. It's not like your first language. Was that taking on a role like that where basically you had to learn another language other than English? Was that hard for you? Like, how did you adapt to that kind of new environment?
My character didn't have too much language, so I didn't get to kind of play with that as much. But what I was exposed to wasn't necessarily hard because I wanted to learn it all, and that was something I was really passionate about. And I grew up not on my country, so I'm Bunjalung and Lama Lama, and I grew up in Melbourne. So I know like little words of Guna Chumara more so than anything. So for me, any language exposure I get, I soak it up. Yeah.
Cool.
And just a general question to everyone. It'd actually be interesting to hear from you on this one, Uncle Gary. What is the next, I guess, style of film, genre, would you like to do next? As a director, as an actor, is something bringing language in?
Well, I'm almost retired, so that it'll be the next lot along that may be doing this thing, and hopefully they can do it well enough. But it's like I said, it's a bit outside our what we really do, our day-to-day stuff. So that and so we've got to set time aside, and you know, we did things in the middle of the night, that type of thing. So I really don't know. We take it as it comes, and if it's too much, then we can say it's too much. But can I say, I was, well, Deirdre, my wife, would testify that I didn't want to watch the first episode because I didn't know what would come out of their mouth language-wise. Very pleasantly surprised. I would say that through the whole lot, through some of the really hard stuff that I'd be hard put doing full sentences that they did, they not only did it clearly, they did it, they paused the talk. So it's I not only was surprised, but in the end I was quite proud of these people, and I would say that when I would send things down to Margid, you know, I'd my linguist there had an iPhone. I didn't have anything like those newfangled smartphones, and so she would take it down to her computer, send it to me. We both had that audacity, and we'd chop it up, and then I'd send it down as an email, doing each word and what it was, and so doing word by word, and then the sentence, and trying to make it as easy for them as possible. And they, like I said, I was very proud for what they did.
We couldn't have done it without you and your team, Monk. So, you know, it was a phenomenal amount of work that you guys delivered, and you know, it wasn't easy for your team. We understand that, and it was, you know, to have moments where we have, you know, especially in the second season where we had,
that was
8-year-olds
that was hard.
standing up, and doing whole scenes in language. It was amazing effort from your team. So thank you.
And on that note, I'd like to everyone again to give our 3 guests a wonderful applause for sharing tonight. Also like to give Kimberly and Keenan a thank you for hosting the night. And I'd just like to thank you all for listening and being so engaged. I think it was a really insightful conversation, and I feel like I can't believe they hand-stitched the hair. My mind is blown from a lot of the stuff that I've learnt tonight. So it's really good, and thank you so much for sharing with us everything that, went into creating such a wonderful series. I will let you know, Ryan and is Tamala as well, and Uncle Gary will be signing the Cleverman. We've got the Cleverman comic in the shop at the moment at ACMI. If you haven't got a copy, we've got copies there at ACMI, so make sure you get one. And make sure you get a signature on that copy as well. So that'll just be outside there on level 1? Level 2? Oh, just outside the door. So if you want to get your signed copy, make sure you line up. Otherwise, thank you all for coming tonight, and I hope you really enjoyed the conversation. Make it home safe.